Hey everybody, it's Mr. D here, and we're going to go over the final part of the final review, which is going to be creating some pivot tables with a chart and then moving those charts up to a dashboard and tying them in with a slicer. What we have is some data regarding sales. You've seen this data before in a homework assignment. We're going to create 3 pivot tables related to this data and a pivot chart that goes along with it. And then we're going to move those up, add the slicers, and call it a day. So the first pivot table we want to look at is going to be looking at total sales of units by the product type. So we want to insert pivot table, and Excel is smart enough to have grabbed all of our data. We're going to put it on a new worksheet, and we're going to call this worksheet sales by product. And we are going to, in the rows column, we want the group. So we're going to drag group down here, and that's whether it's cereal, fruit, ice cream, or milk. In the values, we're going to look at sales of units. So we're going to drag units down to values, and it's going to assume we want a sum, and we already have now a sum of units. But because our data, if you look at our data, has sales from multiple years, we're going to want to filter this by the year. So we're going to drag year down into the filter. So now we can choose if we want just one particular year, we can filter that data. We also want to, while we're here, let's go ahead and insert a pivot chart. And that pivot chart, we're going to do a bar chart. And a couple of things we're going to do. We're going to remove the field buttons. We're going to delete the legend. And we're going to get rid of this space. We do that by double-clicking on the bars, going over here to the series options. This gap width is 182% of the width of the bar. That looks better down around 50%. And while we're here, let's go ahead and fill it with a color other than blue. Let's go ahead and choose, let's say, a dark yellow. And I've only got one chosen, so let me do it that way. You can change each bar. Alright, so we've got that now in our chart. Pretty simple chart, but within about a minute and a half, we've created a summary showing sales by the group, type of product, and units. Let's go back to our pivot table data. Let's insert another pivot table. This time we're going to look at sales in units by region. So we're going to do sales by region on the tab. And this time we're going to move store down to our row. Those are our 4 regions. We're going to do count of units, and we're also going to filter again by year. And let's put a pivot chart in, another bar chart, that'll be fine. And let's remove the field buttons. Let's get rid of the legend. Let's go ahead and change the width to 50. And this time let's fill these with green. Alright, so now we've got 2 of our bar charts done. And let's do one more. And this time we're going to do sales by month by region. So insert a pivot table. And we want to look at in this case, the store count I'm sorry, we want the stores to be in the columns. So we're going to put our months down along the side. We're going to put our month here. So we have our sales by month, by region. And this time we're going to look at revenue. We're going to sum our revenue dollars. And we learned that we can go in here and format this to currency. Let's take it to $0, decimals I should say. And we again want to filter by year. So we're going to drag year down to the filter. And let's put in a pivot chart. This time let's do a line chart. And it's showing our sales by month, by region. And we're going to go ahead and again hide the field buttons and get rid of the legend. All right, so now we've got 3 pivot charts, 3 pivot tables that are analyzing the data, and I'm going to name this one just sales by month, not by Monty. And so we've got 3 bar chart or 3 charts, 2 bar charts and a line chart, and we need to create a dashboard. And we're going to copy those charts to the dashboard. So let's first start with this chart. First we'll copy it and paste it. I want to stretch it out a bit so the data looks a little more dispersed. Then we're going to take our other 2 charts, copy, paste, and we'll copy this one. Alright, so now we've got 3 charts on our dashboard. And what I want to do now is put a couple of slicers in here. And I want to put a slicer in for the year, and I want to put a slicer in for the group. So we're going to go back over here to our pivot table, pivot chart tools, insert a slicer. I want to do year and group. And we can move these over. And if we change the data, it's changing the yearly data on this chart, but it's not changing down here. And if you remember, we have to right click on the slicer, go back to report connections, and we have to connect all of these pivot tables to the same slicer. So now when we change a pivot table year in the slicer, it changes all 3. We can also choose what product group, and it will change them as well and show that data. That's what I'm looking for a pivot table chart, and a slicer dashboard for the final. What I'll give you is probably give you a copy of the pivot table and have you create it, and then have you create the chart and copy it over and create the dashboard. I'll give you copies of those, or photographs or images, so you can create it from there. But that's what we're looking for the assignment on the final when it comes to pivot tables, pivot table charts, and a dashboard. All right, I think we're done here. Have a pleasant day.